The sound of leather shoes against marble echoed through Prestige Motors as security dragged her toward the exit. Arielle Reynolds' heart hammered against her ribs, the flush of humiliation burning across her skin as countless eyes watched her removal. Her voice, normally confident in boardrooms where she presented multi-million-dollar architectural designs, now trembled with barely contained rage. "Take your hands off me," she hissed through clenched teeth as the guard's fingers dug into her arm. The showroom fell into an uncomfortable silence, the kind that follows when witnessing something deeply wrong, yet doing nothing to stop it. "You have no idea who I am," Arielle said, her words carrying to the onlookers who pretended to examine luxury vehicles while stealing glances at the unfolding scene. The sales manager stepped forward, his smile tight and dismissive. "That's precisely the point, ma'am. We know exactly who you are not." He gestured toward the gleaming Bentleys and Maseratis surrounding them. "And you don't belong among these." For a moment, just one heartbeat, Arielle's confident facade cracked, not from the sting of rejection, but from the crushing familiarity of it all. How many doors had been closed in her face despite her achievements? How many times had her skin color spoken louder than her credentials? As they pushed her through the glass doors into the harsh daylight, Arielle caught her reflection, designer suit immaculate, posture still regal despite the indignity. And in that reflection, she made a promise to herself. This time would be different. This time, they would remember her name. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below with your city or country. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button to join our community of storytellers dedicated to Black voices and experiences. Just that morning, Arielle's day had begun so differently. The early light had filtered through the blinds of her home office as she reviewed the final architectural plans for the Downtown Arts Center, her biggest project to date. At 42, Arielle had built her reputation as one of the most innovative architects in the city, known for designs that were both functional and breathtaking. Her firm, Reynolds Design, had grown from a one-woman operation to a respected name with 15 employees and a portfolio of impressive projects. She smiled as she traced a finger over the signature curve of the building's roof. The city council had unanimously approved her design last week, and the contract was worth more than any she'd secured before. It felt like the culmination of years of hard work, of pushing against barriers and exceeding expectations. "I think it's time," she said aloud to the empty room, making a decision she'd been contemplating for months. Today was the day she would finally treat herself to the luxury vehicle she'd always wanted but had put off buying. Not because she couldn't afford it. Her firm had been profitable for years, but because part of her still carried the cautious mindset inherited from parents who'd taught her the value of modesty and saving. Her husband Davis was away in Tokyo, closing a deal for his tech company. Davis Reynolds had built his fortune through a series of innovative software platforms, eventually becoming one of the few Black billionaires in America. But their worlds remained purposefully separate in many ways. Arielle had insisted on maintaining her own career path, her own finances, her own achievements. They supported each other fiercely but never overshadowed one another. Their marriage was a partnership of equals in all the ways that mattered. "Let me make my own way," she had told him early in their relationship. "I need to know what I can accomplish on my own." And Davis had understood completely. She called him quickly before heading out. "The Arts Center is a go," she told him, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "I'm thinking of celebrating with a little something for myself." Davis's laugh was warm even through the distance. "About time. You've been eyeing that Mercedes for how long now?" "Maybe I'll surprise myself," Arielle replied. "Go for something different." "Whatever you choose, you've earned it," Davis said. "I'll be home in 3 days. Love you." "Love you too," she smiled, ending the call. Driving to the dealership, Arielle felt a surge of excitement. This purchase wasn't just about a car. It was about acknowledging her own success, allowing herself to enjoy the fruits of her labor. She'd researched extensively and had several high-end models in mind. Her credit was impeccable, her finances in order. There would be no financing needed. She planned to pay in full. When she first stepped into Prestige Motors, the atmosphere was hushed and rarefied, soft lighting reflecting off glossy paint jobs, the subtle scent of leather and wealth in the air. A young salesman approached her with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Prestige Motors. How can I assist you today?" he asked, his gaze making a quick assessment of her appearance. "I'm interested in looking at a few models," Arielle replied. "I've narrowed it down to either the new S-Class or possibly something in the Bentley line." A flicker of something, surprise, doubt, crossed the salesman's face before his professional demeanor reasserted itself. "Of course. The S-Class is over this way. I'm Trevor, by the way." The first few minutes proceeded smoothly enough. Trevor showed her the Mercedes, reciting statistics and features with rehearsed precision. But as Arielle began asking more technical questions and then expressed interest in seeing the more expensive models, the atmosphere subtly shifted. Trevor's responses became clipped, his enthusiasm waning. He checked his phone more frequently. When Arielle moved toward the Bentley display, she noticed a second salesperson watching her with thinly veiled suspicion. "These are our premium models," Trevor said, his tone now carrying a note of caution, as if she had wandered into forbidden territory. "The Continental starts at $220,000. "I'm aware of the pricing," Arielle replied evenly. "I'd like to see the interior options, please." Trevor exchanged glances with his colleague. "Perhaps we should discuss financing packages first?" "That won't be necessary," Arielle said. "I'll be paying in full." The skepticism on Trevor's face was now unmistakable. He excused himself abruptly, walking over to a man in an expensive suit, clearly the manager. They spoke in hushed tones, with occasional glances in her direction. Arielle felt her jaw tighten. She recognized what was happening, had experienced it before in various forms throughout her life. But knowing didn't make it sting any less. The manager approached, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Ma'am, I understand you're interested in our premium vehicles." "Yes, I am," Arielle replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Is there a problem?" "Not at all. But these vehicles represent significant investments. We find that many browsers aren't serious buyers. We wouldn't want to waste your time." The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but clear. "You don't belong here. You can't afford these cars. You're wasting our time." "I assure you, I'm very serious," Arielle stated, her voice leveled despite the heat rising within her. "I'm prepared to make a purchase today if I find what I'm looking for." The manager's smile tightened. "Perhaps you could provide some verification of intent? Our policy with these higher-end models." "What kind of verification?" Arielle interrupted. "A credit check? Income verification? Do you ask all your customers for this before allowing them to view vehicles?" "Well, no, but..." "Then why are you asking me?" The manager's demeanor shifted from condescending to cold. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're quite busy today with scheduled appointments. Perhaps you could return another time, or we could direct you to some of our more accessible models." "I'd like to speak to the owner," Arielle said firmly, anger now rising in her chest. "The owner isn't available," the manager replied quickly, too quickly. "And frankly, ma'am, if you're going to be difficult, I'll have to ask you to leave." "Difficult?" Arielle's voice rose slightly. "I came here as a customer ready to spend $250,000 on a car. How exactly am I being difficult?" The manager glanced at the security guard, who had materialized nearby. "Please escort this woman out. She's disrupting our business environment." And that was how Arielle Reynolds, accomplished architect, businesswoman, and yes, someone who could very well afford any car in that showroom, found herself being physically removed from Prestige Motors on what should have been a day of celebration. Arielle sat in her BMW, knuckles white against the steering wheel, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. Not tears of sadness, tears of pure, unadulterated rage. She took deep breaths, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. The parking lot of Prestige Motors seemed to mock her with its manicured landscaping and fountain centerpiece. A monument to exclusivity she had just been deemed unworthy of entering. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant about a meeting tomorrow. The normalcy of it felt jarring against what had just happened. Arielle stared at the screen, then opened her contacts and called Layla Washington. Layla answered on the second ring. "Hey there. Shouldn't you be test driving some ridiculously expensive car right now?" They kicked me out, Arielle said, her voice tight. There was a pause on the other end. I'm sorry, what? Prestige Motors. They escorted me out with security. Apparently, I was disrupting their business environment by trying to buy a car while black. Are you serious? Layla's attorney voice slipped into place, sharper, focused. Tell me exactly what happened. As Arielle recounted the events, Layla's occasional and I see punctuated the story. When she finished, there was silence for a moment. Document everything, Layla finally said. Write down names, times, exact words used. Take photos of the dealership, noting the time you were there. Check if they have external security cameras. We might be able to get that footage. What are you thinking? Arielle asked, though she already knew. Layla Washington didn't become one of the city's top civil rights attorneys by letting incidents like this slide. I'm thinking this isn't 1960, and businesses can't treat people this way, Layla replied. The question is, what do you want to do about it? That was the question, wasn't it? Arielle could file a complaint, potentially pursue legal action. She had the resources, the connections. But she also had a business to run, projects to complete. Did she want to spend her energy fighting this battle? I need to think, Arielle said finally. Let me call you back. She ended the call and leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes. The humiliation of being escorted out replayed in her mind. But it wasn't a new feeling. The memory surfaced unbidden. Professor Whitaker's office at the School of Architecture 15 years ago. Arielle, then 27 and working on her master's thesis, sat across from him as he reviewed her ambitious design for a community arts center. It's certainly creative, he said, the pause carrying his true assessment. But perhaps a bit unrealistic. Unrealistic how? Arielle had asked, already bracing herself. Whitaker leaned back, fingers steepled. These sweeping designs, the innovative materials, they're interesting academic exercises. But in the real world, you'll need to be more practical. The materials are all within code requirements, Arielle countered. The structural engineering has been verified. Ms. Reynolds, he said with the patience one might use with a child. I've been in this field for 30 years. Very few women, especially black women, get to design major commercial buildings. I'm simply suggesting you focus on residential projects, homes, small office renovations, areas where you're more likely to find success. Arielle remembered how her blood had boiled, how she'd bitten back the first 3 responses that came to mind. With all due respect, Professor, I didn't join this program to design kitchens. That attitude won't serve you well in this industry, he warned. Architecture is still an old boys' club. I'm just being realistic about your prospects. She'd left his office that day with a fire in her belly. 2 years later, her thesis project won a national student competition. 5 years after that, she founded her own firm. And last year, she'd given a guest lecture at that same university, introduced by a much older, much more deferential Professor Whitaker. The memory hardened her resolve. She pulled out her phone again and texted Layla. I want to talk to the owner directly first. If that doesn't work, we go further. Layla's response was immediate. I'll clear my afternoon. Pick me up in 30. 90 minutes later, Arielle and Layla walked through the doors of Prestige Motors again. This time, Arielle noticed how conversations stuttered to a halt, how the same salesperson who had assisted her earlier suddenly found paperwork requiring his immediate attention. The manager who had ordered her removed was nowhere to be seen. We'd like to speak with Richard Harrington, Layla stated to the receptionist. Her tone was pleasant, but left no room for refusal. Mr. Harrington is very busy today, the young woman replied nervously. Perhaps I can schedule an appointment for next week? That won't be necessary, Layla smiled. Please inform him that Layla Washington is here regarding a potential lawsuit, and I'm happy to discuss the details with everyone in this showroom if he's unavailable. The mention of lawsuit worked like magic. Within minutes, they were escorted to a spacious office at the back of the dealership. Richard Harrington was a man in his 50s, with silver hair and the confident posture of someone accustomed to getting his way. He rose when they entered, his smile stiff but professional. Ladies, welcome. I understand there was some confusion earlier today. Confusion isn't the word I'd use, Arielle replied coolly. Discrimination seems more accurate. Harrington's smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened. That's a serious allegation, Miss Reynolds. Arielle Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds. I can assure you that Prestige Motors does not discriminate against any customers. Then perhaps you can explain why your staff felt it necessary to have me physically removed from the premises when I expressed interest in purchasing one of your vehicles? Arielle asked. Harrington glanced at Layla, clearly assessing the threat level. I've spoken with my sales team. There seems to have been a misunderstanding about your ability to afford the vehicles you were inquiring about. And what led them to that conclusion? Layla interjected. What specific criteria did they use to determine Ms. Reynolds' financial capacity? Harrington shifted uncomfortably. We deal with many browsers who have no genuine intention to purchase. Our sales team is trained to identify serious buyers. Based on what? Arielle pressed. I'm curious what it was about me that screamed not a serious buyer. Was it my clothes? My questions about the vehicles? Or was it something else entirely? The implication hung in the air. Harrington's jaw tightened minutely. Ms. Reynolds, I apologize if you felt unwelcome. That was certainly not our intention. But I'm sure you understand that luxury dealerships must be discerning. I'm the principal architect at Reynolds Design, Arielle interrupted. My firm is currently overseeing the new Downtown Arts Center project. I have excellent credit, substantial income, and was prepared to pay cash for a vehicle today. Harrington blinked, recalibrating. I wasn't aware of your professional standing. You shouldn't need to be, Layla cut in smoothly. That's rather the point. Nevertheless, Harrington continued, his tone cooling. I'm concerned about the nature of the accusations you're making. Unfounded claims of discrimination could damage our dealership's reputation. We've served this community for over 30 years. Unfounded. Arielle echoed in disbelief. We have security footage, Harrington continued, an edge entering his voice. It shows you becoming agitated with our staff. If you're suggesting legal action, I should warn you that defamation works both ways. It was a threat, thinly veiled but unmistakable. Arielle felt a surge of fresh anger at the audacity to discriminate against her, then threaten her for calling it out. Mr. Harrington, Layla said, her voice dangerously calm. I suggest you review that footage very carefully before making accusations of your own. My firm would be delighted to subpoena it as evidence if necessary. Arielle leaned forward slightly. I didn't come here for money or to damage your business. I came here to buy a car and was treated like a criminal. Now I'm here because people should know how you operate. What exactly do you want? Harrington asked, dropping the pretense of cordiality. Accountability, Arielle replied simply, and assurance that this doesn't happen to anyone else. Harrington's laugh was short and dismissive. And if I refuse? Then we explore other options, Layla said pleasantly. Legal action. Media coverage. I'm sure the community would be interested to learn how Prestige Motors treats potential customers of color. The threat of publicity seemed to land harder than the legal implications. Harrington's expression darkened as he stood up. I think this meeting is over. My assistant will see you out. As they were escorted through the showroom, Arielle felt the eyes of the staff following them. She held her head high, refusing to be diminished. That went exactly as expected, Layla muttered as they reached the parking lot. So what now? Arielle asked. Now, Layla said with grim satisfaction. We plan our next move. That evening, Arielle sat on the terrace of her home, nursing a glass of Pinot Noir as twilight settled over the city. The confrontation with Harrington had left her with a familiar heaviness, the weight of fighting battles that shouldn't need to be fought in the first place. Her phone lit up with Davis's name and photo. Despite the 14-hour time difference, they never missed their daily call. Hey you, she answered, trying to keep her voice light. What's wrong? Davis asked immediately. Even across oceans, he could read her. Arielle sighed and recounted the day's events. As she spoke, she found herself remembering the first time they met, at a tech and design conference in San Francisco 7 years ago. She had been presenting her innovative approach to sustainable urban architecture. Davis was in the audience, there to speak later about his company's breakthroughs in AI. She noticed him immediately, tall, attentive, asking the most insightful question during the Q&A. But it wasn't until the reception afterwards that they actually spoke. "Your design for the community center was revolutionary," he'd said, approaching her with 2 glasses of champagne, offering her one. "The way you integrated solar collection into the actual structure without compromising aesthetics. Brilliant." She'd been surprised, not by the compliment itself, but by his genuine understanding of her work. Most people just focus on how it looks. Most people don't realize form and function aren't separate entities, Davis had replied with a smile that reached his intelligent eyes. They'd talked for hours that night, missing most of the reception. Not about business or networking, but about growing up in households where excellence wasn't just encouraged but expected. About navigating spaces where they were often the only black person in the room. About dreams too big to voice to most people for fear of being labeled arrogant or unrealistic. "I knew that night," Arielle told Davis now, the memory warming her despite the day's frustrations. "I knew you were different." Davis's soft laugh traveled across the connection. "Because I understood cantilevers and load-bearing calculations? Because you never once questioned whether I belonged in that room full of innovators," she replied. "You just assumed I did." Their courtship had been swift but deliberate. Within 6 months, they were engaged. The wedding was intimate, just 50 guests at a sculpture garden Arielle had helped design. They'd written their own vows, both promising to support each other's dreams without overshadowing them. "I don't need you to fight my battles," she had told him one night shortly after they married, when he'd offered to leverage his connections to help her firm secure a major contract. "I need you to believe I can win them myself." "I've never doubted that," Davis had responded. "But there's a difference between fighting for you and standing with you." That distinction had become the cornerstone of their relationship. They built their careers independently, celebrated each other's victories, provided refuge when the world became too much. When Davis's company valuation had crossed the billion-dollar mark 2 years ago, Arielle had been thrilled for him, but made it clear she wanted no part of that wealth in her professional life. "The architecture world already questions whether women deserve their success," she'd explained. "I won't give them reason to say I succeeded because of my husband's money." Now, hearing the day's events, Davis was furious but measured. "What do you need from me?" he asked, the question he always posed when she faced obstacles. "Nothing yet," Arielle replied. "I'm handling it, but I'll let you know." "How's Tokyo?" "Boring compared to what you're dealing with," he said. "I can wrap things up early if needed." "The deal is important," she reminded him. "Stay? Finish it. I've got this." After they hung up, Arielle checked her email. Layla had already drafted a formal complaint to the Better Business Bureau and the state's Consumer Protection Agency. But there was something else too, a message from a former client who worked at the city's most popular morning news show. "Heard what happened at Prestige. Disgraceful. Would you consider sharing your experience on air? People need to hear this." Arielle stared at the message, weighing the implications. Going public would shine a necessary light on the discrimination, but it would also thrust her into a spotlight she'd never sought. Her work, not her personal life, had always been her focus. Before she could decide, her phone buzzed with a new call, Prestige Motors. She answered cautiously. "Ms. Reynolds." A nervous voice she recognized as the receptionist. "Mr. Harrington would like to speak with you again. He's had some time to reconsider the situation." "Has he?" Arielle replied evenly. "He's authorized me to offer you our sincere apologies and a significant discount on any vehicle in our inventory. 20% off the list price." The offer was meant to be placating, to make the problem disappear quietly. But to Arielle, it felt insulting, as if the humiliation she'd experienced could be erased with a markdown. "Please tell Mr. Harrington I'm not interested in a discount," she said firmly. "He was afraid you might say that." The receptionist continued awkwardly. "He's also willing to personally assist you with your purchase." "This isn't about the car anymore," Arielle interrupted. "It's about dignity and respect. 20% off doesn't address the real issue." After ending the call, Arielle made a decision. She drafted a response to her contact at the news station. "Let's talk. This isn't just about me." By the next morning, word had begun to spread. Layla, with Arielle's permission, had shared the incident with several community leaders. The local chapter of the Urban League issued a statement condemning the dealership's actions. A hashtag started trending locally. Hashtag Prestige Discriminates. Harrington called again, his tone noticeably less confident. "This is getting out of hand," he said without preamble. "We're a business, not a public enemy. What will it take to resolve this matter?" "Systemic change," Arielle replied. "Not just an apology to me, but a commitment to ensuring this doesn't happen to others." "That sounds like you're asking for a lot more than just selling you a car," Harrington said tersely. "That's because this was never just about buying a car," Arielle responded. "This is about who gets to exist in certain spaces without being questioned." The conversation ended in an impasse. But as Arielle prepared for her interview the following day, she felt a shift in the narrative. What had begun as a personal humiliation was evolving into something larger. A conversation about the subtle and not-so-subtle ways discrimination persisted in supposedly post-racial America. That night, Davis called with news. He'd be home tomorrow, a day earlier than planned. The Tokyo deal was signed. "Perfect timing," Arielle told him. "I could use your support at the studio tomorrow." "I wouldn't miss it," he promised. "And Arielle, I'm proud of you for standing your ground." If you're feeling the tension in this story, give this video a thumbs up so others can find it too. What do you think Arielle should do next? Subscribe now if you haven't already. We share powerful stories like this every day that need to be told and heard. Arielle spent the rest of the evening preparing. This wasn't just about exposing one dealership's discriminatory practices. It was about using her platform as a successful professional to highlight an experience all too common for people of color, regardless of their achievements or socioeconomic status. She had no idea that by this time tomorrow, her stand would take an unexpected turn, one that would force Prestige Motors to face their actions in a way they never anticipated. The morning interview had gone viral within hours. Arielle, poised and articulate, had shared her experience without rage or tears, just the clear, unflinching truth of what had happened at Prestige Motors. She hadn't mentioned her husband's wealth or her own considerable success except to note she was a working professional. This wasn't about proving she deserved respect because of status. It was about the fundamental dignity every customer deserved regardless of race. By afternoon, Prestige Motors was in damage control mode. Their social media accounts overflowed with angry comments. Local news vans parked outside the dealership. Harrington had called Arielle 3 times, each message more desperate than the last. At precisely 2 p.m., Arielle pulled into the Prestige Motors parking lot again. This time, she wasn't alone. Layla sat beside her, along with 2 community leaders who had reached out after the morning broadcast. She had chosen her outfit with care, a tailored ivory suit that radiated confidence and serenity. Her makeup was flawless, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. She looked like exactly what she was, a successful woman who refused to be diminished. As they walked toward the entrance, Arielle noticed an unusual number of people milling about the dealership, some clearly customers, others holding phones up to record. Word had gotten out that she was returning. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw Arielle. "Ms. Reynolds, Mr. Harrington is expecting you. Please, right this way." The showroom felt eerily quiet as they passed through. Sales staff who had ignored or dismissed her yesterday now couldn't meet her gaze. The manager who had called security was nowhere to be seen. Harrington waited in his office, standing as they entered. 2 other men in expensive suits, likely the dealership's legal counsel, flanked him. His attempt at a welcoming smile failed to mask his anxiety. "Ms. Reynolds, thank you for coming. I hope we can resolve this unfortunate situation amicably." Arielle took the offered seat but didn't return his smile. "I'm listening." Harrington cleared his throat. "After reviewing the events of yesterday, I want to offer our sincerest apologies. The way you were treated does not reflect our company's values. We've already suspended the staff involved pending an investigation." "Suspended, not fired?" Layla interjected. "Interesting choice. We're conducting a thorough review," one of the lawyers said smoothly. "But we acknowledge the interaction was unacceptable. We'd like to offer you not just a significant discount on any vehicle, Harrington continued, but also a VIP customer package including complimentary maintenance for 3 years. Arielle studied him for a moment. Mr. Harrington, I didn't come back for special treatment. I came because what happened to me happens to black customers every day in establishments like yours. They're just not all in a position to fight back. We don't discriminate as a policy, Harrington insisted, his tone defensive. This was an isolated incident. Was it? One of the community leaders cut in. Because we've collected testimonials from 15 other customers of color who experienced similar treatment here over the past year alone. Harrington paled visibly. Before he could respond, a commotion outside the office drew everyone's attention. Raised voices, a flurry of movement, and then the door opened without a knock. All eyes turned to the tall figure in the doorway. Davis Reynolds stood there in an impeccably tailored navy suit, his presence immediately commanding the room. Behind him, a gathering crowd of onlookers peered in with undisguised curiosity. Sorry I'm late, Davis said simply, moving to stand behind Arielle's chair. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, not taking over, but offering silent support. Harrington's expression transformed from confusion to shock as recognition dawned. Everyone in the business world knew Davis Reynolds, the tech innovator whose face had graced the covers of Fortune and Forbes. Mr. Reynolds, Harrington stammered. We had no idea that my wife was married to me. Davis finished, his voice cool. Why would you? And why should it matter? She came to you as a customer, not as an extension of me. A murmur ran through the watching crowd. Someone outside the office whispered loudly, That's Davis Reynolds, the billionaire. Harrington's face had drained of color. In one horrible moment, he seemed to realize the magnitude of his miscalculation. Not only had his staff discriminated against a successful architect, but they had done so to the wife of one of the wealthiest black entrepreneurs in America, a man whose investment firm had recently been looking at luxury retail acquisitions. There's been a terrible misunderstanding, Harrington began again, his voice strained. No misunderstanding, Arielle corrected firmly. Your staff made assumptions based on my appearance. Now you're changing your tune because of my husband's presence. That's exactly the problem. Davis remained silent, allowing Arielle to lead. It was her battle, her moment. What exactly do you want from us? Harrington asked, defeat evident in his voice. Arielle leaned forward. I want systematic change, not just apologies. Here's what that looks like. She nodded to Layla, who placed a document on the desk. A comprehensive diversity training program for all staff, to be repeated annually, Arielle explained. An overhaul of your customer service protocols to ensure equal treatment, a commitment to diversify your hiring practices, and a partnership with the Urban League's youth program to provide internships and scholarship opportunities. Harrington stared at the document, then at the growing crowd of witnesses outside his office. The situation had spiraled far beyond a dissatisfied customer. This was now about his dealership's reputation, about potential lawsuits, about the business implications of having offended Davis Reynolds. But most importantly, it was about facing the undeniable evidence of discrimination within his establishment. After a long moment, he reached for a pen. We'll need to review the details, but I'm prepared to commit to these changes. As Harrington signed the agreement, a spontaneous round of applause erupted from the onlookers. Someone outside even cheered. The story of Arielle Reynolds standing her ground was already spreading through social media, a modern David versus Goliath tale where dignity triumphed over discrimination. 2 weeks later, Arielle, Davis, Layla, and representatives from several community organizations gathered with Prestige Motors leadership for the first implementation meeting. The atmosphere was markedly different from the tense confrontation. Harrington, though still uncomfortable, seemed genuinely committed to the changes. We've already completed the first round of diversity training, he reported, and we've hired a consultant to review all our customer service protocols. What about the internship program? Arielle asked. We're finalizing the details with the Urban League next week, Harrington confirmed. We're prepared to sponsor 5 interns annually and provide a scholarship for 1 student interested in automotive business. Layla reviewed the progress notes. This is a solid start. We'll need quarterly updates to ensure continued compliance. Of course, Harrington agreed. His gaze shifted to Arielle. Ms. Reynolds, I want to say again how deeply sorry I am for your experience here. It's been educational for me personally. Arielle nodded, accepting his words for what they were. Not just damage control anymore, but the beginning of genuine understanding. By the way, Davis mentioned casually as the meeting concluded, I hear Wilson Motors across town has excellent customer service. That's where Arielle bought her new Bentley last week. 3 months later, Arielle drove her sleek new Bentley into the parking lot of the community college where she was scheduled to speak. The vehicle drew admiring glances, but it was the woman behind the wheel who commanded true respect. Inside the auditorium, a diverse group of architecture and business students waited to hear from her. The lecture series, Breaking Barriers in Business and Design, had been her idea, sponsored jointly by her firm and Davis's foundation. As she prepared her notes at the podium, Arielle spotted a familiar face in the back row. Trevor, the salesman who had first dismissed her at Prestige Motors, sat there looking both nervous and attentive. She had learned he'd been one of the employees initially suspended, but later reinstated after completing extensive training. Now he was enrolled in business courses here, part of his own journey toward growth. After her presentation on architectural innovation, a young black woman approached her. Ms. Reynolds, I followed your story with Prestige Motors. It inspired me to speak up when something similar happened to me at a design firm internship. What happened? Arielle asked. The student smiled. They apologized and changed their policy. Small victory, but it mattered. That evening, Arielle and Davis hosted a fundraiser for the Urban League's expanded youth program. The event was held in the garden of their home, where community leaders mingled with business executives, including, somewhat surprisingly, Richard Harrington. The first group of interns starts next month, Harrington told Arielle, his former arrogance replaced with something approaching humility. And we've hired 2 new sales managers of color. Davis joined them, placing an arm around Arielle's waist. Progress, he commented. Small steps, Arielle agreed. But they matter. As she looked around at the gathering, people of different backgrounds united in purpose. Arielle reflected on how a moment of humiliation had transformed into a movement for change. One person standing firm had created ripples that continued to spread. Not every story ended this way. Not everyone had the platform or resources she did. But tonight was proof that speaking truth to power could sometimes bend the arc of justice in the right direction, even if just in one corner of the world. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share your thoughts below, and let's build a dialogue for change. Subscribe for more powerful stories of transformation, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.